Passover was the birth of the Jewish nation, you might say, at least in their freedom. And you remember the whole process of Passover. As they were preparing for it, they were to take a lamb, they were to bring it into the house, and this lamb would almost become a pet, and then that lamb had to be slain, and the blood applied to the doorpost of the house so that the destroying angel would pass over. That's where the name Passover came from. I am a firstborn. I'm also a little bit paranoid sometimes, and I think that if that night I had been there that night, that I would have gone out several times and checked just to make sure the blood was still on the doorpost of the house. Because I would want to have been passed over. Sometimes being passed over is a good thing. Sometimes we don't like it so much. That Passover was celebrated off and on down through Israel's history. And many times Passovers were connected with some kind of a revival. As a matter of fact, during the time of Hezekiah, they hadn't celebrated Passover for a while, and they celebrated it in their revival, and they enjoyed it so much they celebrated it for another week. So it is something that is important. Now, when Jesus was on this earth, he came as the fulfillment of everything. The feast days, the holidays were all fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Sometimes they weren't terminated, though. Sometimes they were fulfilled and enlarged. And that brings us to what we were talking about today. We just read the passage, no one sews a piece of unshrunken cloth to an old garment, or else the new piece pulls away from the old, and the tear is made worse. Now, it's not a big thing anymore, but when I was a kid, we didn't like to have holes in our clothes. We didn't pay extra for the holes. And we would patch them. We would patch them over and over again. And of course, being young, you usually outgrew them before you had to patch them too much, and you get a new pair. But the simple fact is, if you take a good, strong piece of patch and you patch it on a cloth that is weak, it's going to pull loose. It's just going to make things worse. I guess that's where darning comes in. Doesn't anybody do that anymore? And then the new wine and the old wineskins. Old wineskins would get a little frail. You could put water in them, or old wine that wasn't going to ferment. And you put new wine in an old wineskin, and it would ferment to some extent. And what would happen? The seams would be pulled loose, it would rupture, and you would lose your wine. Jesus closes that verse with saying, but new wine must be put into new wineskins. So what does Jesus do? He takes the Passover service and he renews it. He makes it new, and then he fills it with new meaning. I kind of wonder what the disciples must have been thinking as they went through that. Surely this did not cross their minds at that time. It was something that would have come on later. As they look back, as Jesus was taking this old ceremony, and it was putting into it a new meaning. Because you see, Passover was looking back. That's what it was all about, looking back. This is where they began. This is their heritage. This is their DNA, shall we say. But Jesus takes it and says, that's the past. From now on, this is going to be something new. This is the new covenant. My blood that we shed for you. Take ye all of it, not just Israel, but all, as Jesus was looking down in the future, all people. This is also something else that was put there. As Jesus said, this do until, as often as you do, in remembrance of me until I come. So Jesus takes the old, he renews it, and then he gives it a new meaning. Two meanings, actually. Actually, this is something that's happened now. Yes, but we can look back. Our salvation is starting that Passover that weekend for Jesus, if you want to say that, when he was crucified. But it is also a reminder that there's much more to come. And that much more is what we call ourselves Adventists. We're looking forward to that time when Jesus bursts the wineskins and makes them all new, shall we say, in a phrase. He wants us to experience that. So today we are once again looking back in history, looking forward into the future, celebrating God's goodness in the present. Now we as Seventh-day Adventists celebrate open communion. We invite everybody who has accepted Jesus Christ as Savior to be part of our communion service. We also follow the teaching of Jesus in John 13, where he taught by example and he washed the disciples' feet. And so we do that, and we call it the ordinance of humility. John 13, verses 12 and 13 say, you call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought also to wash one another's feet, for I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. So we celebrate that, and at this time we will separate for that, and we have any couples that would like to join and celebrate together can go into the little classroom here. The men will celebrate out in the front on that side, and the ladies will go back in the area to my right. This time we will separate for the ordinance of humility, and then we'll come back and celebrate the communion service.